If you're a competitive Genshin TCG player, you may recognize this menace to society, the MMEC deck. A combination of characters that existed from the start, but showed its true dominance through patches 3.5 and 3.6. While Genshin TCG is a pretty balanced game, since it is hoyoverse's first dabble into the card game genre, a few of the hundreds of possible combinations have slipped through the cracks and made some unconquerable decks in the PvP meta. Originally in 3.3, it was the Ionia deck, with its insane speed and damage that quickly took out almost all of the competition. Afterwards, Kenki became an absolute powerhouse, and by far the best unit in the game. But after hoyoverse thankfully nerfed both these decks in the next patch, the meta stabilized, giving more room to try out new combinations. More basic strategies were explored, like Vaporize, Freeze, and Quicken, until the European majors that patch. After this debut, Miriam Electrocharged, or MMEC for short, quickly skyrocketed in popularity. But what does it do? MMEC is a mid-range deck. These decks usually have a slow early game, which allows them to set up for power plays in the mid-game. In this case, your rank condition is generating enough chip damage through summons, which will eventually overwhelm your opponent, while at the same time building up towards powerful nuke bursts to take out their already weakened characters. Usually the way to deal with mid-range decks is either taking them out quickly with aggressive decks, or stalling them out past their power spike. MMEC is a different beast altogether though. It is able to outvalue all of the decks in the game by being able to stall out aggressive decks through Hydra Resonance and its Frog Summon that gives a shield, while at the same time its damage over time from Electrocharge goes through shields, which is too much for stall decks to handle. It takes only 2 turns to set itself up and is very difficult to counter. Even if it loses a character, the opponent has taken so much chip damage that the remaining cards can finish the job. Rodea's 10 damage burst at 4 summons is able to easily one-shot full health opponents. Fischl's 4 damage and 2 piercing can carve a substantial chunk off their HP, and Mirror Maiden's 5 damage for 2 energy is a great value burst that's easily obtainable. Combined with the Deptus Temptation, not even a Lotus is going to save you. The deck is able to answer almost anything while being extremely difficult to answer itself. As MMEC has proven its dominance for 2 patches, it certainly needs a bit of a tone down to make it more in line with the competition. But who of the cards is actually the culprit? fischl might spring to mind as the main reaction enabler, however fischl is a balanced kit, which while being flexible, doesn't do anything unfair. Nerfing fischl means nerfing Oz, which is a good skill, but not one deserving of a nerf. As for Mirror Maiden, her kit is very much in line with how other characters function. Removing the refraction would lower the summon damage output, but would also remove an interesting mechanic from the game, which is not something many people want. Oceanid appears to be the card that causes the most problems in this deck, being the only one able to get powerful summons with just the skill, and build towards a powerful nuke burst by itself. It facilitates everything the deck wants to do, and is the main part of your advantage engine. Defensive, aggressive, stalling, nuking, it does it all. So how do we fix her? Time to brainstorm some ideas. Nerfing MMEC is a highly debated topic. While most are in agreement that Oceanid should get the axe, the how is a much more controversial question. So here are some of the ideas circling around the community. Number 1. Weakening the summons. This is by far the most common suggestion. Making the summons less powerful would definitely weaken the punch of the deck's resource loop. The tricky part is which summon to nerf exactly and by how much. Weakening them too little would not solve the problem at all, but hitting them too hard would make the deck incredibly frustrating to play, as the MMEC player would feel like their setup is just not doing the damage it needs to be worth it, creating a feeling akin to that of smacking your head against the wall and trying to break through it. We're trying to make the deck more in line with its competition, not completely kill it. Definitely a good suggestion, but needs a lot more testing from hoyoverse. Number 2. Increase summon RNG. A little more of a creative suggestion is adding more possible summons to Oceanid's pool. No pun intended. If these summons were to be simply worse than the ones currently in the game, this would probably be a change that most casual players wouldn't care about, but it could cause the power level of the deck to be lower, if you don't high roll that is. The deck would still be able to do everything it does today, but less often. On one hand, this is really good. On the other hand, one thing TCG players hate is losing to random luck. Oceanid's RNG summoning can already win or lose close games with its current 3 options. Adding more would make it so the deck can still be as good as before, but it could also cause a lot of frustration from both sides of the screen. Number 3 is to nerf the Oceanid burst. There's no clean way of doing it though. Making it a +1 damage per summon completely kills it, as it no longer does enough damage to be worth it, and making it so that its base damage is 1 instead of 2 also solves nothing, while making it so a 4 total summons does 9 instead of 10, which a deck with piercing damage will barely notice. Number 4 is removing one of Oceanid's summoning skills. This one is interesting. Removing the 5-cost summon would make the deck slightly less dice efficient, but would probably not hurt that much. Often you can stall it long enough to get your summons out no matter what. Getting rid of the 3-cost single summon is way more interesting though. It would make it so that Oceanid is very predictable in a high-cost unit. Often in endgames, Oceanid will have a Lucky Dog circlet and just be able to single summon to regain some HP. Now doing this is way more of a commitment. If you're trying to stall an Oceanid so that Mirror Maiden can end the game, well, good luck. You either have to normal attack or spend 5 dice, usually making it impossible to also switch to Mirror Maiden and use your skill to get more damage out of the refractions, but this would require some testing. In conclusion, in order to lessen MMEC's dominance over the meta, Oceanid will require some sort of change in the coming patch. People have the tendency to push back against nerfs, but so far many of the nerfs in TCG have been quite reasonable and keep the meta healthy. hoyoverse's TCG team has done a good job at keeping the game balanced. But if you think there's a better way to nerf MMEC, let us know in the comments below, or join our Discord server at discord.gg/GITCG. Discussion helps the game grow and become even better. That's all for this discussion video. We'll see you next time.